Very good afternoon. And before we start, some housekeeping rules. I request each one of you to kindly keep yourself on mute. I request all the team members to kindly keep yourself on mute. A very good afternoon, everyone, and warm welcome to the 28th Water Talk, which is being organized by National Water Mission and is supported by Water Digest. I'm Anupma, the director and editor of Water Digest, and we are glad to be a part of this wonderful initiative of National Water Mission. Today, we are hosting 28th Water Talk, which means it's more than 2 years since when this Water Talk series has been started. And during this entire time period, there had been a lot of speakers who spoke on various important topics, have captured a lot about water management. And today, we are honored to have with us Dr. Vivek Debaroy, Chairman, Economic Advisory to Prime Minister and President, Indian Statistical Institute. He'll be sharing his views on solving India's water problems. Welcome, sir. And like always, we are honored to have with us Shri G. Ashok Kumar, Additional Secretary and Mission Director, National Water Mission, who have been an integral part of the Water Talk and Tech Talk series. So without further ado, we have a lot in store today. So without further ado, I now request Shri Ashok Kumar ji to kindly propose the welcome address. Over to you, Ashok, sir.
Thank you, Anupama. Good afternoon, Dr. Vivek Debaroy, and welcome to all the participants for this 28th edition of the Water Talk. Jaise मैंने बताया, this Water Talk series is one of the flagship programs of the National Water Mission. We started it on 22nd March 2019, World Water Day, and from there on, actually progressed in quality and style and in quantity, people participating in it, and it has really become one of the very, as I said, one of the major success stories of National Water Mission. When we started on World Water Day 2019, it was a physical event. We had the meeting at the Dr. Ambedkar International Center in Delhi. We used to get about 300, 400 people, and we used to invite people who are in the field of water activism, as well as policy making, as well as theoretical, and who can really make very, very convincing arguments on water. They are the people who are our initial speakers. We also brought in people who are down to earth and who actually have transformed the water situation in many villages and made a lot of contribution to the thing. And we're lucky to have in the first year for the 12 Water Talks, two of our people got Padma Award that year itself. Dr. Anil Joshi got the Padma Bhushan, and Popadla Pawar got Padma Shri last year. So we had at that time Dr. Misha was there, then water activists like Anil Joshi was there, and then Popadla Pawar. Many of the people who were actually in touch with the field were also had come. So then, when the COVID struck us, we had to, of course, shift over to the digital media, and that's where Anupama and her team also gave us support. With the help of Water Digest, we are now going on with the 28th Water Talk. So the shift to e-talk was another path-breaking event. We were experimenting it with about 100 participants, and then we went to 500 participants, then we went to 10,000 participants, and we went to 50,000 participants, and then lo and behold, in one of our Water Talk 18th Water Talk, when the Honorable Minister spoke, we had almost 2.5 lakh people watching us live on the main platform, as well as on our social media platforms. So that's the reach we could get. The number got very mind-boggling. And also, very surprisingly, we used to get questions from various parts of the world, from Nigeria, from Dubai, from America, from Australia. So we had literally gone places at that time. So now I am sure that this lot of people, there are a lot of people who actually wait for this particular water talk because it is a regular event. Let rain come, let the sun come. We are there on every third Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. with our water talk. So it's a accepted and much looked forward event for us. And associated with that, we also started the water tech talk, which is on the second Friday of every month. That again, in from 3 to 5 p.m., we had taken the niche water technology things to be showcased there. We had people from the industry also coming up. We have from the people from the academy here and technical institutes coming in, informing us of the various progress being made in the water sector. So that's again is a very much looked after, looked forward event. So every second Friday from 3 to 5, we have the water tech talk. And also the Saturdays, we have the meetings with the DMs, 4-5 DMs every week, and with one NGO coming and talking to us on what all they are doing in the water sector. And coming to the campaign, important campaign which we are doing the Catch the Rain campaign started by Honorable Minister, Honorable Prime Minister on 22nd March of 2021, the 2021 World Water Day. So that is on World Water Day 2021. Honorable Prime Minister launched a very big even Jal Shakti Abhiyan Catch the Rain campaign, addressing 2.5 lakhs sarpanchas, and we had actually requested collectors and the state governments to organize Gram Sabhas. So in India, we have about 2.5 lakh Gram Sabhas. Even if you have about 1.5 lakh Gram Sabhas organized, each with 100 people, be about 100 people participating in the launch. That was probably one of the biggest launch of a water conservation event. And despite the COVID pandemic coming in between, the second wave coming in between, we have a lot of work in the field happening. We have almost 25,000 crore rupees worth work is being done or completed. We have about 9 ministries, departments of the government of India, pitching in this rural development, urban development, all of the departments coming in. And this campaign, we have broken the boundaries, we have broken the barriers and silos of water, the rural water, urban water, irrigation water, agriculture water, groundwater, surface water, all the silos have been broken and we all brought together. And water we are addressing as one. And that is the success of this Jal Shakti Abhiyan Catch the Rain campaign. Along with that, along with the construction or creation of the water bodies, along with maintenance of the existing water bodies, along with the revival of the traditional water bodies, along with revitalizing the rivers and small rivulets and nalas, we also plan to do make an inventory of all water bodies in the country. Again, a very gigantic Herculean task, attempted in parts by different states, but we are trying to make into the entire country a database of the water bodies in the country with crowdsourcing. Every department, we are asking the collectors to inform us, and crowdsourcing we are doing it. We're also trying to use that, make a scientific planning of the water conservation works which we'll take up in future. And most important, we are also trying to set up Jal Shakti Kendras in all the districts, which would be a knowledge center for water, because water, as like the blind man and the elephant, are dealt by different people, and different people come out with different aspects of water. So we want elephant to be seen in toto, and the water be taken up as one unit: urban, rural, surface, groundwater, industry, agriculture, everything. So that's where the Jal Shakti Kendras are being contemplated, and many places being done. So yesterday, on 2 days back, we had a review. The Honorable Minister had taken a review with all the district magistrates of Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh. About 90 districts were there, 90 DMs were there, along with the ministers of Jal Shakti Uttar Pradesh and the Minister of Irrigation in Uttarakhand. Our Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat ji had taken up a meeting, and And this review meeting we are extending to all the states in driving the importance of this campaign. And this, I think, would be one of the cheapest, most economical, and the best solution for many of the water issues. Water catch the rain where it falls, when it falls. Now, I am not giving the solution, but today our speaker, Dr. Vivek Debroy Saab, topic of the discussion is solving India's water problem. So it's we are all waiting to hear, because this is $1 billion solution which will be telling us the solving India's water problem. There are different aspects to it: the demand side management, supply side management, how people should treat water, all these things. And Dr. Vivek Debroy Saab is a man who has multiple hats, and who I would say like can talk economy like water, and he knows all the economics of water. So he's a very decorated person. He was was a member of the Niti Aayog from 2015 to 2019, and presently he is the chairman of the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister, and also president of the Indian Statistical Institute. He has eminent academic credentials. He was educated in Ramakrishna Mission School, and then to Presidency School, College Calcutta, Delhi School of Economics, and Trinity College, Cambridge. He has a lot of PhDs and DDs to his credit. He has also won many awards, and the most important of them being Padma Shri in 2015 for literature and education. And that brings to the another aspect of hat of Dr. Debroy. He is a great author, authored many books, several books and popular articles, and a very unknown, at least it was very surprising to me that he had translated the unabridged version of Mahabharata, the great epic, into English, and becoming one of the very, very few personalities ever to achieve that feat. And his translation of Mahabharata was published in a series of 10 volumes amounting to about 2.5 million words. He has translated Bhagavad Gita, Harivamsha, Vedas, Valmiki, Ramayana, etc. And he translated the Bhagavata Purana and Markandeya Purana as well. So, as I said, he is a man with wearing different hats: economists, as well as theology, a lot of knowledge in Sanskrit, and probably he would enlighten us from the traditional wisdom also what exactly can be done. So over to you, Dr. Vivek Debroy Saab. We are waiting for your solutions to India's water problem.
Kumar, for not only inviting me to deliver the 28th Water Talk, but also for that very, very kind introduction. When Dr. Ashok Kumar invited me to deliver this talk, I said, why me? I know about the illustrious people who have delivered water talks earlier. I know about the illustrious people who have delivered water tech talks earlier. And I know nothing about water. So why are you asking me to deliver this water talk, which is also supposed to solve India's water problems? So to let you in on a secret, we had a private deal, and I'm just clarifying this private deal before I start, that the agreement was that although it says there will be a question and answer session after the end of my talk, all the answers will be given by Dr. Ashok Kumar, not by me. I will just ramble on India's water problems as I see them. A little bit of personal anecdote. I was born in Shillong, which is the capital of Meghalaya now. It used to be the capital of undivided Assam. And in Shillong, those of you who are familiar with Meghalaya, those of you who are familiar with that part of the country, know that in Shillong it rains all the time. It perpetually rains. And I'm talking about a period when I was very, very young. At that particular point in time, we were very proud. Remember, I was a kid. So there are things you understand as a kid, there are things you don't understand as a kid. As a kid, there was a tremendous sense of pride that Cherrapunji holds the record for the most rainfall in the world. Cherrapunji, of course, is a British name. It's not really Cherrapunji. The place is called Sora, and it's been renamed Sora now. And then when we were still growing up, we were mortified. Cherrapunji's world record has been taken away. That world record has been taken away by some place that we didn't even know of in Colombia. And then we regained our pride. Because yes, Cherrapunji's record may have been taken away, but now the record is held by Motion Ram, which is also very close to Shillong. Just to clarify our matter of records, the place in Colombia also holds a record, Motion Ram also holds a record, and Cherrapunji also holds a record. Cherrapunji holds the record in terms of the maximum rainfall in a certain month and in a certain year. And that is a long, long time ago, in 1860, 1861. Motion Ram also holds a record in terms of average annual rainfall. Colombia also holds a record. So all of these are different records. The metrics are different. Why am I mentioning this? I'm mentioning this because it appalls me to know that a place like Cherrapunji or a place like Sora suffers from a water shortage now. In a place like Sora, there is a water shortage now. In a place where it rains all the time, there is a shortage of drinking water. There is a shortage of irrigation water. When I grew up many, many years ago in Shillong, there used to be drain pipes. The houses in that part of the country are constructed differently. There used to be drain pipes, and there used to be huge drums. And we collected that water in the drums for use. Catch the rain when it falls, where it falls. And we had no tap water. The water came from a well, which occasionally used to be chlorinated, but we drank the water straight from the well without boiling it. A few years ago, I went on a visit to Shillong, and I went and visited the house we used to live in so many years ago. That house now has water coming from a tap. I scouted around in the courtyard to see if there were any drums for collecting water. They weren't. There was no need because the water was coming from a tap. Having climbed, it was on top of a small hill. Having climbed it, I was thirsty. So I said, can I have a glass of water? And I got a bottle of bottled water. So I asked, What about the water from the tap? Can't you drink it? And like many other places in India, I was told, tap water that comes from the tap is no longer fit to drink. So we all drink bottled water. I thought I would start with this personal anecdote because to me, it is a metaphor of several things that have happened. And for me personally, it sets a context for this National Water Talks, which was started on World Water Day. I'm no expert on water. It is very easy to figure out what percentage of the world population is Indian. Depending on the year, 17% odd, we know that about roughly 17%, a little over 17% of the world's population is Indian. In the introduction, it was said I am the president of the Indian Statistical Institute. So obviously, I'm interested in numbers. Obviously, I'm interested in statistics. In any case, I'm an economist, so we deal with numbers. I found several reports, and these reports say India accounts for X% of the world population, which is fine. And in different reports, I came across the following statements. India accounts for 4% of the world's water resources. India accounts for 4% of the world's renewable water resources. India accounts for 4% of the world's fresh water resources. And I was mystified. Is it world's water resources? Is it world's renewable water resources? Is it world's fresh water resources? It cannot be all of them at the same time. So which one of this is it supposed to be? 97.5% of the water on earth is salt water. A remaining percentage, which is fresh water, is in Antarctica and Greenland. It's in glaciers, polar ice caps, it's in the atmosphere, it is in the soil, which is too much below the Earth's surface, it is polluted. So the available water, the available fresh water is at most 0.5% to 1%. So where does this 4% come from? People who are listening in, people in the National Water Mission, all of you are experts. I have not been able to figure out the original source of this 4% figure and how it is computed. It is difficult enough to compute the global level of water, fresh water, but how on earth have we computed the amount of fresh water that is available in India to work out that figure of 4%? I don't have a satisfactory answer. There are different kinds of water. There is the surface water. Some of that surface water is as a result of rainfall and snow melt. Now, not all of that can ever be mobilized. Not more than 40% can be mobilized, perhaps even less. If I'm going to talk about the annual flow of Himalayan rivers, most of it, 90% of that annual flow is concentrated in 4 months. So when I compute that 4%, how much of that surface water do I count? How much of the groundwater do I count? I do not want to belabor the fact about numbers and statistics, but I just want to mention this. Let me also mention the obvious. It is obvious, but nonetheless it needs to be mentioned that when we are talking about water problems in India, we are not only talking about water problems in the aggregate, we are talking about water problems in terms of the distribution in water. For example, if I'm talking about the precipitation, I mentioned Sora and Mawsynram. When I'm talking about precipitation, at one extreme, I have a state like Meghalaya, and at the other extreme, I have a state like Rajasthan. So yes, there is a problem about the aggregate level of water available. There is also a problem about its distribution across different states. How much water is available to us per capita? How much of it is available to us per capita? The general government figures, which are essentially based on a Central Water Commission study from 2019, says that as of today, as of 2021, the availability is a little less than 1500 cubic meters. I will repeat that. As of today, it is a little less than 1500 cubic meters. Let us say 1500 cubic meters. Parallelly, the World Bank cites figures of 1100 cubic meters. Which one of this is the correct figure? Is it 1500 cubic meters? Is it 1100 cubic meters? Surely someone who's a water expert should tell us whether it is 1500 or whether it is 1100. So this seems to me again a bit like that 4%. I don't really know exactly how that number is defined, how that number is obtained, how that water is being defined. What, however, is obvious is whatever be the definition, the amount of water that is available to us is progressively coming down. I said 1500 now. In 1951, it was more than 5,000. It becomes worse if I make projections forward, because if I make projections forward by about 2050, it will be down to a little over 1200. And just to make it clear, the World Bank has classifications of countries that go through water stress and countries that go through water scarcity. In terms of those thresholds, we are a water stressed country today. But we will soon be a water scarce country. And just in passing, a large part of the water, 80% perhaps, is used by agriculture, which brings one to a question that I will come to later on about the efficient nature of agriculture and the efficient use of water in agriculture. And most of that, not most, a large chunk of that is provided by groundwater. The World Resource Institute has a map. I mentioned the distribution of water in different parts of the country. Obviously, regions differ. India is a heterogeneous country. So the World Research Institute has a mapping of world stress parts of India, world stress regions of India. States. What are these world water stress regions? I will quickly read out the names. Chandigarh, Haryana, Rajasthan, UP, Punjab, Gujarat, Uttarakhand, MP, Jammu and Kashmir. Chandigarh, Haryana, Rajasthan, UP, Punjab, Gujarat, Uttarakhand, MP, Jammu and Kashmir. Of course, other parts are also water stress. Andhra Pradesh is water stress. Tamil Nadu is water stress. Chhattisgarh, when the Water Resource Institute did this, they were probably including Chhattisgarh as part of MP. Chhattisgarh is also water stress. But if you have noticed the list of names that I mentioned earlier, where are these concentrated? They are concentrated in what is called the Indo-Gangetic Plain. They are concentrated in the Gangetic Plain. What is remarkable about the Gangetic Plain? The remarkable fact about the Gangetic Plain is that it is full of rivers. It is full of rivers, it is full of lakes, and yet we have a situation where these parts of the country are water stressed. Increasingly, a lot of research is being done on the Indus-Saraswati civilization. The Indus-Saraswati civilization wasn't just Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. There have been other excavations which have shown that the size and the geographical expanse of that Indus-Saraswati civilization was immense. What happened to it? How did it disappear? Why did it disappear? There is more or less a consensus now that it didn't disappear. It moved eastwards. Why did it move eastwards? It moved eastwards because of environmental reasons. It moved eastwards because of desertification. It moved eastwards because of the Saraswati, which till a certain point in time was a more important river than the Sindhu. It dried up. Civilizations, human civilizations, particularly since agriculture became settled agriculture and ceased to be nomadic, it happens, urbanization, habitations, they develop along rivers. So when those rivers dried up, when the course of the Yamuna switched and it reversed direction from flowing westwards to flowing eastwards, that entire civilization moved eastwards. The point being, civilizations depend on water. A mention was made of the fact that I'm interested in some of our old texts. Most of people are familiar with the names of the 7 great rivers. Sapta Sindhu. Sindhu is not the name of one particular river. The Indus, any river is Sindhu. Any any body of water is Sindhu. Many people are familiar with the names of Sapta Sindhu, 7 rivers. They even familiar not only with the names with one particular shloka, which I will mention, and then I don't have to translate it because it is just names of rivers. The 7 great rivers. And in any puja or something else, you will have come across this. Gange cha Jamuneshchaiva Godavari Saraswati Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Jale Asmin Sannidhan Kuru. In this water come and be present, these great 7 rivers. Ganga, Jamuna, Gange cha Jamuneshchaiva Godavari Saraswati Narmada Sindhu Kaveri. Ask yourself, forget the Saraswati having dried up, what is the status of the other rivers? Niti Aayog has now begun since 2018 to produce a composite water management index. Just to drive home the point, I will mention some things from the first Niti Aayog Composite Water Management Index in 2018. I'm just quoting some numbers from that. In India, 600 million people face high to extreme water stress. 600 million. About 200,000 people die every year because of inadequate access to safe water. By 2020, this report is from 2018, so they were making assertions about 2020. By 2020, 21 cities will run out of groundwater. In that list of cities that will run out of groundwater, cities that were mentioned was Delhi, Chennai, Bengaluru, and Hyderabad, all major metros. And in all of these metros, we are familiar with the phenomenon of tankers and the tanker mafia. Niti Aayog said by 2050, there will be a 6% loss in GDP, a 6% loss in GDP because of water problems. 70% of the water is contaminated. And it also told us, and this is important because quite often we think about the quantity of water and not about the quality. It also told us that in a global water quality index, 120 out of 122 countries, India, in terms of measuring water quality, was ranked 120th. I shouldn't give the impression that Niti Aayog's annual exercise is entirely negative, because it's an annual exercise, and in a subsequent year, they documented states that had improved in various senses. It's an index, a whole range of variables that I use to aggregate. And we will come back to water issues later again. In its ranking, the states that have improved, meaning these are states that did something to reform the water sector, there is a mention of Gujarat, Andhra, Madhya Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh. These are at the top. But there are also states like Jharkhand, UP, Orissa, and Bihar, and the northeast, parts of the northeast that have not done well. The obvious point about a country like India is that it's heterogeneous. All states do not perform uniformly. There are some states that do well, there are some states that don't do that well. And since the quality of water has been mentioned, I come from a state, well, I don't live there anymore, but I originally come from the state of West Bengal. In the state of West Bengal, particularly some districts, in a large number of districts, there are serious issues of arsenic contamination. Not just West Bengal, Jharkhand, Bihar, UP, Punjab, Haryana, Karnataka, Chhattisgarh, Manipur, Assam, it goes on and on. There is an issue of arsenic contamination. There is an issue of the quality of water, which means the issue of testing of the quality of water. As I said, when we grew up, when we were growing up, we sometimes drank water straight from the taps. Our sons will never drink water from a tap. They want the bottled water. What has happened? Is it that we had greater natural immunity and our sons don't? Maybe, but probably not. Probably what has happened is, even when you have that water coming out of the tap, the quality of the water has deteriorated. Let me now mention what I think is an important issue, and this is an important issue for solving India's water problems. It's an important issue in terms of a mindset. Economists talk about a public good. The old definition goes back to a famous economist named Paul Samuelson. And a public good is something from which I cannot prevent anyone from getting access. And if I have that particular good, it does not deprive you of access to that public good. And all kinds of people indiscriminately toss around the term public good. Is water a public good? Many people will say yes. The implication being that if water is a public good, any public good must be offered free, and therefore if water is a public good, it must be offered free. Water is not a public good. It is a private good. It is a private good, and therefore if it is a private good, we must be prepared to pay for water. I find this mindset issue most puzzling. Take a completely different example. Quite often we travel abroad, and particularly have the United States in mind. The check-out time from a hotel is 12 o'clock. And my flight is in the evening. So I keep my bags, the bags that are going to be checked in on the aircraft, in the hotel. In most places in the United States, the hotel will charge you for keeping that bag. Because of course there is a cost. If you try doing that in a hotel in India, even if you are staying in that hotel, you will fight with the hotel, saying it is my right that you should keep the bag for me free. I will go to Europe, happily pay to use a toilet, which also is not a public good. A toilet is also a private good, but here I will expect the toilets to be free. However, the moment it comes to water, even if I am prepared to pay for it abroad, here I will refuse to pay. So there is a double point I am making here about the principle and the mindset of paying for water, because there is a certain cost associated with delivering water. There is a certain cost associated with delivering clean water, water of requisite quality. And there are externalities also, negative externalities which I must build in, because the availability of water is not what it used to be. So I must not only A, in terms of mindset, price the water, B, I must set the price right. But if you think of something like the Sarais Act, which used to be there until recently. What is a Sarais Act? What is a Sarai? It's that roadside inn. And what was the requirement of the Sarais Act? That any passer-by must be given a free glass of water. That glass of water also costs, but I will come back to this issue again later on. Take the example of people getting connections of tap water at home now. That's a private good. I've got water coming out of my tap inside my home. That's a private good. Before I got that, there was a common tube well, which, to use economist jargon, was a collective private good. If everyone in a community, so to speak, has got water flowing out of the tap within the home, there is no need for the tube well. But the moment the tube well is taken away, There is alarm. There is criticism. I think part of that issue is there are several issues. Part of it is we have forgotten what was part of our history, what was part of our legacy, what was part of our culture. A mention was made about the fact that I translate. Yes, I translate. I've translated some Puranas. The Purana I'm translating right now is the Shiva Purana. The Shiva Purana has several Samhitas, which are sections of the Shiva Purana. And the particular Samhita I'm translating now is called the Uma Samhita. And the specific chapters of Uma Samhita I am translating now are on donations of water, creation of water bodies, planting of trees. All of which will be on the agenda of anything that National Water Mission tries to do. Providing drinking water, building water bodies, planting trees. The point I'm making is who was supposed to do this? Today we expect the government to do all this. But at that time, like the Uma Samhita segment of Shiva Purana, when this was being suggested, it was not being suggested as something that government should do. It was being suggested as something that citizens should do. We are familiar with the term Ishtapurti. Constantly we use the term Ishtapurti. What is Ishta and what is Purti and what is the difference between the two? Ishta is a sacrifice. What is Purti? Purti is civic works. So you are supposed to do these civic works. The British documented a whole lot of things. They documented everything they could lay their hands on, and in the 19th century they began by producing gazetteers for the country. For the country meaning not the princely states, the parts that were directly under the British Crown. Initially they were national level gazetteers, and then they began to produce gazetteers for different districts. I'm now talking about the Ambala District Gazetteer for the year 1883. The Ambala District Gazetteer for the year 1883. In 1883, what is happening in Ambala? In 1883 in Ambala, a canal has to be built. In 1883 in Ambala, a canal has to be built. How much is that canal going to cost? In 1883 rupees, that canal is going to cost. I'm rounding off a little bit. In 1883, that canal is going to cost about 45,000, about 45,000 rupees in 1883 rupees. In 1883, that canal is going to cost 45,000 rupees to build in 1883 rupees. How much did the government pay? The government of the day paid 20,000. Who paid the remaining 25,000? The remaining 25,000 was paid by the community. Today, if a suggestion is made that the community should pay 25,000 or whatever is its counterpart, there will be strong opposition. What are we paying the government taxes for? The simple point I'm trying to make is that, and this is part of the National Water Mission's mandate also, this was initially mentioned by Dr. Ashok Kumar as well, that in solving India's water problems, we also need to point a finger inwards. Because many of the problems cannot be solved by the government acting in isolation. Solving these problems require all of us to be involved. Let me quickly mention some broad brush, big picture kinds of problems that I perceive in terms of issues connected with solving India's water problems. I will mention them only in bulleted form. The first is generally there is a top-down approach. Quite often an argument is made about governance in general, that in India governance needs to be decentralized. During the British colonial period, governance was centralized for various reasons, land revenue being one of them. Immediately after 1947, immediately after independence, there were other reasons, including planning, why there was excessive centralization. And several people have made the point that for governance in general, we need to have a much more decentralized structure. That's true of water too. The governance has to be decentralized. I think if I look at it from the point of view of management of water, there are reasons for taking a look at various provisions in the Constitution. Where the primary powers in the matter of water, primary power for matters of water are the domain of the states in terms of the 7th schedule. States have been formed for various reasons. And the reasons are not always economic and administrative. There are reasons that are connected to linguistic reasons, historical reasons, legacy. The simple point from our point of view is that the formation of the states does not correspond to natural river basins. If one is planning for water, a natural way to plan would be to use the river basins. But state formation does not conform to these river basins. We don't really have a very clear legal definition of rights so far as surface water is concerned. I'm generalizing a bit because I'm stating these in bullet form. Surface water rights are not very clearly defined. So far as groundwater rights are concerned, and groundwater does have externalities, so far as groundwater rights are concerned, the rights are by and large private, which makes it very difficult to build in externalities. If I look at environmental laws, broadly the Environment Protection Act does recognize the issue of water, but the implementation of environmental laws, including water pollution, leaves a lot to be desired. We have too many laws, orders, and regulations straddling union governments, state governments, and different departments within union government. Consequently, there is a tendency to work in silos. To add to the decentralization point I mentioned earlier, at the local government level, there is often a lack of capacity. There is also often a lack of ownership. And naturally, in matters of rivers. There are issues of conflict resolution between states, and not conflict resolution that drags on inordinately, but conflict resolution that happens fast and efficient. All of these are implicitly there in the national water policy. But it is my view, and it is my personal view, it is not the view of the chairman to the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister, that the national water policy needs to be amended. And the national water policy needs to specifically look at some of these bulleted points. You don't have to agree with all of those bulleted points, but the national water policy must look at some of these bulleted points that I've mentioned. In terms of solving India's water problems, what can I possibly add? The water talks have been mentioned. This is the 28th. And the National Water Mission brought out a document which documented the recommendations of all of these national water talks, all of these water talks. And what are these recommendations? And no one can possibly disagree with any of these recommendations. It's really a question of moving forward and implementing those recommendations. What kind of recommendations? One of them, Dr. Ashok Kumar also mentioned in his initial remarks. And there is also a document that the National Water Mission published not very long ago on India's step wells. In parts of India, there were several used to be several step wells. One of these recommendations is on the revival of traditional water conservation. The revival of traditional water conservation. As I said, it used to be there. It was not only there in the Uma Samhita of the Shiva Puran, it was there if you look at the district gazetteers of the 19th century. If we have lost the revival of those traditional water conservation methods, if you are no longer aware of them, if they've fallen into disuse, to the best of my understanding, that is a phenomenon that goes back to the 20th century. If I have got my facts right, the last step well was built in Gujarat in 1923. Before that, we had a tradition. So it's important to revive that tradition. It is important for the younger generation to be aware of that tradition. And then, of course, in terms of recommendations, to reiterate the point made by Dr. Ashok Kumar in his initial remarks, there are recommendations that are on the supply side, like groundwater recharge, like mandatory protection. I underline the word mandatory, like mandatory protection to groundwater. He mentioned the demand side, but on the demand side, let me quickly mention that the demand side involves the nature of commercial activity, which is industry, and also agriculture, because both industry and agriculture in India tend to be very, very water intensive. And there are more efficient methods of irrigation that we are all familiar with. There are issues connected to cropping patterns. There are some states which have no business to be growing rice and wheat. Rice is a water-intensive crop, so why do such states grow rice? They grow rice because there is no price for water. They use groundwater to irrigate, drive down the water tables, and any wrong pricing of water completely distorts resource allocation. So the issues about the nature of agriculture, the cropping patterns with a clear regional dimension to that. Again, in terms of the recommendations, spliced with the point about decentralization, water user associations. Decentralized. Rainwater harvesting, as I said, at least at a countrywide level, we have a large amount of precipitation, it drains off. And therefore, rainwater harvesting, which is part, of course, of that slogan, catch the rain where it falls when it falls. And of course, the treatment of wastewater. No one can possibly disagree with these solutions, which I said are the average recommendations as documented by the National Water Mission. Let me not end on a negative note. On a positive note, there are two things I must mention. The first thing I must mention is the Jal Jeevan Mission, which was started on the 15th of August 2019. It's particularly focused on rural India. The National Rural Drinking Water Mission is part of that. And this is important because this is also linked to SDGs and SDG targets and indicators. And what is the idea? The idea is that everyone in rural India should have a functional tap connection. This is essentially about retail supply of water for rural India. So by 2024, everyone in rural India should have this tap connection. And I'm not going to cite numbers, but the numbers of what the Jal Jeevan Mission has accomplished, the numbers are quite impressive. However, there is a however. There is a CAG report which points out that sometimes there is slip back. So yes, the numbers are very impressive, but one tends to drop back. Why? Because this focuses on the retail. It does not focus on the supply. And the supply part is really what this National Water Mission is about. And therefore, I'm delighted that this National Water Mission is driving this agenda. As I said, the agenda is more or less known. I set out some of the major concerns and some of the things that should be done to address them, because the water problem is a problem that needs to be solved as of today. Otherwise, it's going to get much, much worse. So that is essentially all that I have to say. The Catch the Rain campaign was started recently, as late as 22nd March 2021. I think what all of these water talks are doing, apart from generating ideas, is disseminating the fact that water is important, disseminating the fact that water is a scarce resource, disseminating the fact that if we do not use water properly, then the generations that follow us will condemn us, because we will have left even more serious problems for them to handle. That is the reason it is important for us to remember our legacy, remember our past, remember our respect for the environment, remember our respect for water. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for the wonderful talk here. But you had actually put in very simple terms the issues we are concerned with water, whether it's a quality and quantity issue, and whether we look at the governance part of it, and also the one part where the cropping patterns and the states which have no business to grow crops which are water intensive. These are all there. So, and rightly mentioned that the role of National Water Mission is actually is the awareness and get the message across to people that water is important and that water is not a free thing which can be public which can be uh, taken up given up freely. You also hit the very basic roots of many of these statistics because I should have been warned about talking to the president of the Indian Statistics Institute because the numbers we tend to repeat the numbers which comes in the books. So it is a fact that measuring water is a very difficult proposition. I mean, because I have worked in the power sector where power can be easily measured and all the parameters of power and all power can be accounted for. But in water, there's an issue because I find that measuring water and the even the measuring devices or the meters of water it's also much complex than what is the how you measure the power. And if you are not able to measure something, not be able to monitor something, that is probably one of the biggest problems about. See, I was back to power and we were handling the reforms projects in power were distribution systems where they were insisting on the smart meters and all these things to measure the power. And the if we can at least know what exactly or measure the what is the power which is taken up, used and given, probably we can do some policy about it. But in water, it's very difficult to measure the water, and water has come from different sources. The ground it is there, from ground it is there. It's from the rains are there. Plus, you are there. So, if you look at it in a field of a farmer, if he is using power to pump up motor, he has to have a one connection of electricity, which we can measure it. Or if he uses a solar pump, we can know how much power is coming out. Whereas when it comes to how much water he uses in the field, it could be from the underground water, the plant which the roots go and search and picks up the water from the underground. There will be rainfall available, the water from the bore which is installed, or he could use the water from the tank which is he has probably constructed by one of the ponds. So it's very difficult to finalize on to have the sort of the exact measurement of the water which is being used. That is one of the major challenges. You had many of the things on the right spot where using the decentralized approach. That exactly what the Catch the Rain campaign is about. Is getting people involved and trying to poke the people of their responsibilities, which we are sort of forgotten down the line. So thanks a lot for giving a very good insight. Now I open it up to the questions, and since the deal of answering questions is still there, so I am I would be using your shoulders to fire on. So you have to first take the questions and take on back. So questions. Now the question sessions are open, and Anupama, you can say the pattern, and Dr. Saab would be willing to face the barrage.
Thank you, Ashok sir, and thank you, Dr. Debroy. Sir, it was great hearing from you, and I would specifically, most of the points Ashok sir has covered, but I would like to mention one wherein you said that, today, most of the things we all witness that ownership lies with the government, but right now it's the time when, even citizens all have to come together, and we hope with the kind of campaigns being run by government, whether it is Jal Shakti Abhiyan or many more, we are trying to kind of involve all the citizens and to contribute in whatever possible way they can contribute towards conserving water. So thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful insights. And now we are opening up for the question answer session. And for all those who have joined us from this platform, I request that in front of you on your window, you'll see one window where there is an option of chat and also hand raise option. So you may raise your hand or write to us in the chat box and put forward your query. For all those who are joining us from social media, And like we are live from almost 8 to 9 platforms of handles of social media, Facebook and LinkedIn. So you can write your query there also, and we'll be happy to take it up. And now we are officially open for the question answer session. Kindly raise your hand or write to us.
I request Mr. Rahul Muralidharan, you may please ask your query.
Hello, sir. My name is Rahul. I'm an architect, but I do farming in Maharashtra. As you said, I am born and brought up in Kerala, and then I shifted to Maharashtra. So all these points Vivek sir had covered up. I had a huge list which I had to discuss, but he showed the way, and government already has all these plans. So what I see in my village where I do my farming, I used to grow sugarcane. So I used to grow sugarcane through flow irrigation in the early days, that is in 2000s. I shifted to drip irrigation at that point of time, wherein each acre was requiring around 4 crore of liters. And this I felt that I couldn't find. I grow these things in a drought prone area. So after I shifted to drip irrigation, I found that my yield has grown up. I could make out an average of around 90 to 95 tons per acre, which was around 30-35 tons per acre during that point of time. But then slowly what I understand that whenever I am using these kind of techniques also to save the water, I am growing sugarcane in a drought prone area. And these drought prone areas, I mean, I understand this. I have stopped that. I started cultivating mangoes. So what I understood that when my kids were growing up, I do not need them to feed with sugarcane. It's only the industrial part that is I have to, for the money or the financial benefit. But what my kids or everybody needs is nutrition. So I started growing my fruits and other things. So I have amla, I have chiku, I have kesher, and I have different kinds of jackfruits as well. So when I was exporting my mangoes again for economical thing, all these countries, they want around 250 grams and above of mangoes, which was there. They want, some countries like Canada, they want 270 grams. All this sorting was going on. So although the mango sizes may differ, but then they have the nutrition value exactly what is required. And to my wonder, which I have seen is drought prone areas which these fruits are grown are exceptionally sweet and tastier that you grow in some areas where the rainfall is heavy. For example, if you grow a mango tree in Kerala, you will not find the same taste or as you find in a drought prone area. So I may control, but this sugar cane, every year it is being growing. So this year around 11% of the cultivated land of Maharashtra has turned out into sugar cane. So to feed all these industries, now sugar industries may produce excess and export. But with each sugarcane platform, we are facing this water scarcity, which is pumped during the peak season when it is raining. So 11 months, all these years, each sugarcane every hectare. So India has around 132 crore acres of land under cultivation for sugarcane. So as he said, government should bring some rules which would restrict the areas of cultivation and the use of water by these farmers. As 80% we know.
Mr. Rahul,
Can you
sorry, I would like to interrupt here. Rahul, can you please put forward your question?
Ma'am, there should be some restrictions on cultivation as well, because what I feel is that only sugarcane cannot fulfill our needs. And increasing sugarcane production will only increase the water scarcity in areas. And we, especially like Maharashtra, UP, we are everybody is in a drought prone area. So growing a water, like what he said, if Punjab has excess of water, they can grow rice. But we are in a drought prone area and we are extremely scarce of water. In these areas, if the sugarcane production every year is going on a higher scale, water, I mean, whatever we do not have. And every time we cultivate this sugarcane, we need heavy pesticides, we need heavy.
So again, shall I ask Dr. Debroy start off, and I can add on later on.
Sorry, I didn't understand that. Do you want me to respond to that question?
Yes, he says that government should take something to decide or some to get people go for crops which are not very water intensive. That's what you said also.
Yes. what he said was more like a comment. So let me comment on the comment. And I want to make two comments, neither of which should be misunderstood. I'm making the first comment because you are from Kerala. And do not misunderstand what I am about to say as contradicting the Jal Jeevan mission. But I want to use that as an example to drive home a different point. Quite often, when we say this should be done, that should be done, we think that is objectively desirable. It isn't objectively desirable. There is a subjectivity associated. Excuse me, there is something urgent I have to take care of. Just give me, ruko zara. Let me answer this question. There is often a value judgment associated with it. What do I mean by that? If I look at the UN and I look at the UNDP and I look at the indicators for human development, an indicator is that there must be tapped water supply. You come from Kerala, where a large part of the drinking water comes from wells. I was born in Meghalaya, where a lot of habitations are up there on the hills. It costs an enormous amount of money to take that pipe water up that hill. It may be easier for a state like Meghalaya to get water from streams. The simple point I'm making here, and don't misunderstand what I'm saying, is the objective is to deliver clean, safe, potable drinking water. The tap is only an instrument. Do not misunderstand. I know the objective of the Jal Jeevan mission is to deliver tap water, but I'm just making this point that sometimes in our pursuit of development, we take something as objectively to be true, but it's actually a value judgment, often with the Western kind of lens. But in terms of the concrete comment, let me say this, that agriculture is still riddled with distortions. It's riddled with distortions on the input side, which includes the pricing of seeds, water, even fertilizer. And let me underline water, power. It's also riddled with policies on the output side. When we talk about agriculture, we should be talking about agriculture in totality. But when we talk about agriculture, the discourse is essentially limited to rice and wheat and cotton and sugarcane. But there's a lot of agriculture outside that. And the real income, the agricultural income growth will happen from commercialization and diversification away from food grains, like the mangoes you mentioned. So my comment on your comment would be that I personally think that for rice and wheat and sugarcane, there are government-induced distortions. And those distortions must go. I'm listening, I just have to take care of something urgent.
Let me continue, Rahul, on the point which Dr. mentioned. So, the 85 to 97% of water usage in the country, statistics can be disputed, but the general consensus is that nearly a large volume of water and quantity of water 85 to 90% of water usage in the country is in agriculture, which has a very poor water use efficiency. So our water footprint is very high because of the poor irrigation practices we follow. Understanding this and thinking that a 10%, at least even a 10% saving of water usage in agriculture can almost you double the water which is now being used for drinking water and industry, etc. Because if you say 89% of water is used for agriculture, then the rest is only 11%. So if you save 10% of water in agriculture, it comes about almost 10%, which is almost as the same amount as the water which is used for drinking water and domestic and industry purposes. So the National Water Mission had come out with a campaign for called Sahi Fasal, which means right crop. Sahi Fasal was to nudge farmers to go for crops which are water efficient and which uses water more efficiently. There are two ways of achieving it. One is the crop diversion, which you also mentioned, that the crops which take a lot of water, primarily rice, wheat, cotton, and sugar, the four big fours which take a lot of water and unfortunately account for 70 to 75% of the irrigation in the country. So these four crops, which are water guzzlers, are actually taken up in a big way, mainly because of the market-induced or government-induced distortions, which the Dr. mentioned, Dr. Debra mentioned. This is basically because of the MSP and the government policies of the government. But mind you, these were needed at some time back, 50 years back, when we didn't have food security. When we were waiting for the ship from America to come and land and give us food, we were waiting with, I mean, I wouldn't say the big call, but we were waiting for these PL64 to come and give us food. That time, water security or food security was more important than the water security. That's where we actually went on to that. But now we have overgone that. We have gone beyond food security. We have probably doubled or tripled the quantity of water required. That probably had come in use during the COVID period when we get so much of trains for the people free of cost. Okay, that's one part of it. But otherwise, we have a lot of food trains with us. So we have overcome the food security issue, and we are extremely surplus in food. So this is time when we and our farmers should move over to crop which are, as Dr. Debra mentioned, maybe cash crops which can give more income, and probably to horticulture. Horticulture is a good substitution for this. Horticulture produces is a very good crop diversion from the crops, food grains which we produce and which guzzles a lot of water. So here one point which I would like to underline is we are looking at from National Water Mission, we have been propagating something called as more income per drop rather than more crop per drop. Because if you look at in an economic point of view, because of the monetization of the economy, what matters to the farmers is the money he gets, not more bags of rice he grows. In a barter system, probably this would have been happy if he get more bags of rice, probably would have got more money out of it. But in a monetized economy, it's the money that counts. So it is the slogan should be more income per drop than more crop per drop. So that's where we can get more income. We can go for better crops, which gives you better returns. Not that which can give you higher price, but it can give better returns. That's one aspect of it. Second is diversify the crops which are like horticulture, which is there, and now new crops like maize has come up. Maize, government has now proposed to have ethanol mixed up in the petrol, and so ethanol requires maize. We can go for that type of crops, which are commercial crops, which are not essentially for eating. We can go for that. Probably we can give better remuneration. So that's one thing. Sahi Fasal is also a campaign which we have taken up to make aware people about the water usage inefficiencies in agriculture, and also nudge them to go for crops which give them better returns. So your answer is well taken. Your question is well taken. We need to have policy, but who will well the cat is the question. Any small change in the agriculture policy, your traditionally mindset, we stuck to that policy, it will be difficult to change. I mean, difficult to change unless awareness comes. Thanks a lot.
Now I request Dr. Dharamveer, you may please ask your query. I request Rajesh Raj.
Yeah. I'm going to ask. Or the suggestion that has been given is about pricing. If I look back, we were paying in Delhi the water charges for domestic usage of water, and there used to be some charge even at the village level. But nowadays, I'm finding that state after state is switching over to no charges. Like, how to ensure that there is a match between what is right or what is being said should be done and what is the ground situation.
Like a comment, I will not comment on individual states and what they are doing. But the point is that to supply, you mentioned Delhi, to supply water in Delhi, I also need to treat the water. And the cost of treating that water is quite a bit per liter. And I should compare those costs with the costs of getting water when it is delivered by tankers. And let me also point out that the present system is not quite equitable, because there are poorer people as of today in Delhi in slums, and most people are aware that there are two kinds of slums. The first kinds of slums are sort of recognized slums, and the second category of slums is unrecognized. So while we debate while the relatively richer people debate on whether there should be the right price for water or not, including negative externalities, including proper costs, including the treatment of that water, the relatively poorer people are already buying that water through tankers at a much higher cost per liter. One of the issues with not charging the right prices is also that I do not have the resources to invest in the water sector, and the chicken and egg problem goes on. It is no different from the message in any other sector that if I don't charge the right prices, then quality and availability both suffer. And I'm not even talking about private investments coming into the sector. So I quite agree with you.
Let me make one more point here. The pricing is very important, because if you look at the water supply charges, we are having regular meetings with the cities of the urban areas, where they get tap water, and most of the cities, actually Bangalore and Hyderabad and all, they get water from very far away areas. Hyderabad gets it from 180 kilometers away, Godavari side, and from Krishna it's 400 kilometers. And in Bangalore also, it is coming from Kaveri. But the statistics said that in Bangalore they charge about the cost of production of water, which the prevention is for the treating and bringing and power charges, etc. It's about 95 rupees per kilometer, and they charge only 7 rupees first slab. The second slab is 11 rupees. If you are a domestic supplier, a domestic user, you charge only 7 rupees per first liter, and the second slab is about 11 rupees. And industries, they charge about 70 rupees. But the cost of production of supplying water is about 95 rupees. You see the difference. There is a huge difference. So if you actually look at the Bangalore Metro Water Supply Board, the more they sell, the more they lose. Because each liter sold, they are losing about 82 rupees for the water. But since it is a public good, as Doctor mentioned, it probably will have a little bit of subsidy as period, but pricing is not been done. this solution of catching the rain and using the water storage, using the groundwater storage to or the force to pump water from the compound would be to reduce the dependency on the water supplied by the water board. And as I said, more they sell, more losses they incur. So there is a very interesting conflict here. If I am in business of selling water and if I do more, I am incurring more losses because of the poor pricing of water. So that's a very interesting. No, but there are politics associated with that. We are not able to discuss because raising the revenue of water or water charges is a highly sensitive and political issue which we cannot discuss. And the point which Dr. Detroy mentioned about tanker is one big mafia. Saturday on the summer months, it is a huge mafia which demands the huge prices for the water supply, and there are a lot of fight and politics involved in that. So if we can store a sufficient quantity of water when it rains aquifers and see that the water is available, we may have not require tankers, and so probably we may look at a tanker Mukh Bharat. Thank you.
There's Mr. Kaushal, who is from Gujarat. He writes that he belongs to a semi-arid region, and he is looking for and requesting suggestions on possible solutions for sustainable agriculture and water availability where the tribal farmers cannot afford modern irrigation techniques such as micro irrigation.
It would not be right for me to answer this question, because this question should strictly be answered by someone from the Gujarat government.
Again, the second agriculture department. This is a problem because water has many masters. So this is an issue of the agriculture department. I'll tell you one point which I would like to emphasize is that there is a lot of subsidy available for micro irrigation facilities. About 90-95% subsidies given to, particularly to tribals. So if they can go for appropriate crops, paddy definitely would not have sprinkler irrigation or drip irrigation, but they can go for appropriate crops which can use drip irrigation, and 90% of subsidies available for the tribals. I think we have to look at explore the options of crop diversion and using the right crops to take up this. You can take up with the state government for that.
Now I request Mr. Shankar Narayanan Johar from Voltas. You may please ask your query.
Hello.
I request yeah, sir, please go ahead.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. See, the scarcity of water, drinking water, has been addressed in Tamil Nadu, basically in Chennai, through a lot of desalination plants. And in the summer months, there is absolutely no scarcity of water, drinking water. And now Gujarat, across the coastal of Gujarat, is following the same trend. Is there any central government plan? Because we have a huge coastal belt all across the India border. So that is one possible solution. Is any central government working on emphasis on this particular availability of technology and potential use of a seawater?
In fairness, this should be really answered by Dr. Ashok Kumar, but I will only make the point that desalinization also has a cost. But this is a question that really Dr. Ashok Kumar should answer.
It's a very, very high cost intensity. The desalination, it has a lot of power also. Tamil Nadu, I think at about 10 to 10% of water is actually coming from desalination of the two major plants there. I think 100 MLD plants are there for desalination there. These are all power intensive and it's costly water. Your suggestion of having a large coastal area, we should get water from the sea and use it for drinking water purposes. It's good, but there are other environmental issues also, because the treated water or the water we pick up from the sea, the remnants of it, it's a highly concentrated salt solution which has to be pumped back to the sea. There are all some environmental issues associated with that. But that apart, when we get rainwater free of cost, but again go back to that solution, why are we always looking at very costly solutions when we can store the rainwater which is free? You're not charging any money for the rain which comes. The rainwater harvesting structures, if you harvest the rain, which was being done very well in Tamil Nadu in the early decades of 2000, this decade, 2001 to 2005, during the earlier Jayalalitha Madam's period. They had done enforced the rainwater harvesting structures, and I have got many people who had come to our shows here at talks where they have saved the rainwater and have used it for the whole year. Particularly in Chennai, there are many restaurant welfare associations which have constructed sums in the underground part of their car park and all, and stored a large volume of water, rainwater, and used it for many purposes. That is a simple solution. And second is the grey water, which we get from the toilets and all these things. That can also be treated in a very much cheaper way, and use it for non-potable purposes. So the idea is that if we can find substitutes for the water or potable water which is currently being used for non-potable purposes like car washing or for non-agricultural or etc., then we may be saving a lot of potable water, and that is a much simpler solution than for going for desalination, etc. And that's what I feel.
So Mr. Saurav Raghuvanshi is talking and asking about the recently launched Ken-Betwa interlinking project, and is writing that in the Ken-Betwa interlink project, there had been swapping of a lot of forests for making dams and all. Do you think this is the right kind of intervention been implemented for interlinking the river for meeting the water demand? And or do you think there are other possible available options which should be looked into?
He has views on it, and who am I to contradict his views on it? I will simply say this, and this is a repetition of what I said earlier, that part of the water challenge in India is one of carrying water from within quotes surplus areas to within quotes deficient areas. And this may happen not only across states, it can also happen within states. And to do this, sometimes, and I'm not talking about this specific link, sometimes it will involve constructing pipes, laying pipes, sometimes connecting rivers, depending on the cost. But I will make two additional points. The first point is, since you come from that region, I presume you're familiar with the old name of Betwa, the real name of the river Betwa. The real name of the river Betwa is Vetravati. And Vetravati is described in the works of Kalidasa as a river, as a turbulent river that was full of waves. And ask yourself the question, what is the state of the Betwa now? It's meant to be a rhetorical question. The second point I'm making, and not about this project, is many of the easier dams were built initially, where the cost to the environment and the costs of rehabilitation and relocation were lower. If one is talking about the large dams, the environmental costs and the costs of rehabilitation and relocation are likely to be much more now. So I do not think in general, and this is not a comment on this particular project, a general comment is, in terms of a cost-benefit ratio, the benefits compared to the cost of large dams today will no longer be as marked as they were in the 1950s.
This is not handled by National Water Mission, so I can't comment on that. But as again, I said, Water Mission is in favor of decentralized storage of water, because the earlier options of dams is over. Dams are very costly. It has environmental issues of environmental impact. It has issues of displacement of people. And after the construction of dam, we have found that many of the dams were not were actually providing much less efficient water than it was planned, because of the issues of silting, because of issues of the efficiency of conveyance, and of course the type of crops which came up under this tax. The days of big dams are over. I don't think any more dams have come up, but we are talking about inter-basin transfer. That there are other experts to talk about it. I am not concerned or idea National Water Mission.
I request Ms. Neha Singh, you may please ask your query.
Hello, sir. I'm Neha Singh. Currently, I'm working in as a geologist in GeoWell Services Private Limited. My question is, as we are using water recklessly, like in indisciplined manner, so in future, can we consider water as a resource, like in terms of sustainability?
Why in the future? I'm saying water has always been a resource. It is a resource even today. It has been a resource in the past. It is not just a resource, it is a scarce resource. It is a resource that we have often, not traditionally, but recently we have often regarded it as a resource that is in plentiful supply. It is not in plentiful supply. So it is a resource not just for the future, it is a resource even for today, as it was a resource for the past.
I request Mr. Prakash Jain, you may please ask your query.
Sir, I'm listening from last many years, your presentations, and working in this field of rainwater harvesting from last 20 years, and got the Water Hero Award last month. So my question is this, that all the time, say Dr. Rai or any speaker is there, we do not get any communication afterwards. So I'm hearing it, so I know Vivek Debroy, but should we get their email address and mobile address?
Well, so far as the email address is concerned, it's readily there on the website. It is vivek.debroy@gov.in. It's there on the website also. So far as the mobile number is concerned, you will never get me on my mobile number. So it's much better you take down the landline number, which is 23096594.
We have a question from, not question, rather he is looking at certain views from your side. Mr. Mohan Sharma writes that when we talk about supply side management, we talk about demand side management. So these kind of estimations and projections are generally given due importance when we are forming up the policies. However, in the business, the social as well as the traditional side gets ignored. So, and this can be the probable reason of poor governance. So, what is your take on that?
I'm not sure I've understood the question at all. I read another question which you have not read out, so let me link it with that question. There's a question which says, there has been a plenty of decentralization and water is not a central subject. I'm deliberately picking on that. Why did the question use the word center? Why? The word center is not there in the Constitution. Why do we keep thinking of center state? The word that is in the Constitution is union. The word center is anti-constitutional. It should be union state. The mere fact that one is using the word center reflects the centralization mindset. When I said decentralization, people immediately tend to think it means union to state. Of course not. Decentralization is within state. Also, in terms of the requirements of the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments, how many states have done the decentralization? The track record is not enviable in terms of decentralizing funds, functions, and functionaries. So I'm sorry to say the decentralization has not happened. Decentralization is not union to state. Decentralization is within states. Decentralization to local bodies. The traditional systems, which is what the question was about, is linked to local bodies. Unless the local bodies are empowered, the revival of those traditional systems, the incorporation of the traditional knowledge is not going to happen. And let us also recognize that so far as local bodies are concerned, it is going to be easier on the rural side. It is going to be much more difficult on the urban side. Why am I saying this? I am saying this because on the rural side we have panchayats or a hierarchy of panchayats. On the urban side, whenever we complain about the chaotic nature of urbanization, if you try to pin it down, you will find that we are complaining about the chaotic nature of urbanization not within a municipality, but outside the municipality, which the census calls census towns. In other words, they've lost the characteristics of a village, they've lost the characteristic of having a panchayat, but they've not yet transcended into becoming a municipality. If you are in Delhi, think of what Gurgaon used to be like before it became a municipality. So I would link this emphasis on traditional knowledge structures, etc., with decentralization down to the level of local bodies, especially in rural areas.
I would go down further, decentralization. Okay, my vision of decentralization is going up to the individual level.
Yes.
So probably the hashtag which I keep on promoting is not from my compound. I want every individual house to ensure that no water comes out of the compound, whether it's a zero discharge, because toilet, the toilet water is different matter, the sewage water is different. Otherwise, ensure that all the rainwater is stored there, either in the compound as a wells or something, or under your property as in aquifer. This will
Yeah,
ensure-
let me just add to it, which is difficult for urban India, but to put it in colorful metaphor terms, the objective for every household should be not to be a net importer of water. Now, do not misunderstand the use of words. It's impossible to do that in metro India. Only that should be the objective.
That's what basically that the maximum water should be conserved there. The rainwater can be conserved there. When the other so the grey water which comes out of your toilets all can be processed at a very small cost and use it for your own purposes there, or can go down your aquifers with a little bit of cleaning, so that the water which is now coming out of the compound, that rushing onto the streets and causing urban flood. So as I mentioned in the beginning itself, this campaign is also targeting as a side effect avoid or mitigate the urban flooding. So one important point why we have so much of flooding is that all our compounds, whichever small area in the compound we have now concretized, we have put tiles, and this tiling of the area and the concretization of the area has got a lot with water not going down to the ground. So at a individual level, at a family level, at a property level, probably we have to have more water storage facility rather than picking up tiles and see that all our water comes to the roads and then creates flood. That's the type of total decentralization which I'm doing. Thank you.
And this is the last question for today, as and due to paucity of time, we'll not be able to take more questions. So this question is specifically addressed to National Water Mission, and it says, Swama Prabha Das, I hope I'm taking your name correct. He has put forward that third, women and children are at the core of water use. Does the national water policy take cognizance of women gender mainstreaming, women leadership in giving importance? Your insights on the same.
Dr. Debra was telling about the water policy of 2012, which is being revised now, and a whole lot of pages and chapters. I think one specific chapter is there on water gender issues, particularly addressing the women issues. The women and water has been very, very clearly indicated in the water policy, which is draft policy which has come up. And National Water Mission, as you're aware, had been trying to create water warriors. We have a lot of women water warriors also, water talks which have come, and recently, with the help of UNDP, we had identified and awarded 41 women water warriors. So these people are ranging from total illiterate, unbanked women on the village, total village persons to educated people with post-graduation degree. But the common factor binding them was the passion for water and how they have transformed their area of influence to a water sufficient place from a very water scarce areas. These are all available in our website, National Water Mission website. The success stories of these water warriors, 41 of them, how they transformed with the wisdom. It's not that many of them, as I said, they did not have any formal education, but then the wisdom, practical knowledge of water management they have used that and transformed the villages or the area which was prone to all sort of water related issues and which led to migration, which led to crime, which led to all other social issues. They all transformed with proper water conservation. And once the water has come back, Lakshmi has come back to the village, migration has stopped. They have brought a greenery in the village. That as the multiple income sources have come up, whether it is fodder for the cattle, whether it is cattle, it is milch. All these things have added to the economy of the prosperity of the village. So definitely gender is a very important issue, and National Water Mission are very aware of, and we promote proper gender sensitization. Sir, anything to add from your side on the gender issue?
Nothing except that often when there is a shortage of water, it is the women who suffer the most. But that is obvious enough.
So with this, we end the question answer session. And like I said, due to paucity of time, we won't be able to take up more questions. But I assure that all these questions which have come to us, we will, all these FAQs will find their place on National Water Mission's website. All the queries will be answered. So without delaying it further, I now request Mr. Sunil Kumar Arora for his thank you request. Mr. Sunil Kumar Arora, Advisor, National Water Mission, to kindly propose his thank you note.
There is a connectivity issue. Just
Hello.
yeah, I think there could be a connectivity issue with him. So anyway, it's a privilege for me to thank Dr. Deb Roy, and I had the occasion of privilege of welcoming him also. Now I take it as an opportunity for privilege for me to thank him for his wonderful insights and also a very lively discussion. I also thank the participants for this for participating in our 28th Water Talk. I thank the platform provider and the main who the logistics, Anupama and the Water Digest, who have been a partner with us for almost a year in this Water Talk campaign, which has gone from strength to strength. So I once again thank all of you for your support and continue to look forward for your support with your Water Talk. And also catch the rain, because rain has already come. So catch the rain where it falls, when it falls. It's the right time for you to action. So it's action time now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashok ji, and thank you everyone. Dr. Roy has been, Deb Roy has been really nice to take out time for us and addressing all these queries also. So thank you so much, and all the participants, thank you for your interactive and active participation, not only this, but in all the water talks and water tech talks, which we have been organizing along National Water Mission. And I look forward to seeing you all next month in the Tech Talk and then further in Water Talk. Till then, stay safe and stay in touch. Thank you.